I'm Kim Kenny, curator of the McKinley Presidential Library and Museum. We've recently launched a program to help raise funds to restore Ida McKinley's gowns. There are 20 gowns that we have identified in this project, and with your help, we'll be able to conserve them all. This two-piece gown is made of aqua silk file, satin, and low looped pile resembling chenille. The skirt features a panel of shirred aqua silk with a hem of matching box-pleated satin. Sadly, a large section of fabric has been removed from the skirt, making this costume impossible to display without extensive restoration. The missing piece was the low looped pile fabric, which would be very difficult to replicate. Our conservator has recommended dyeing a simpler fabric to match the other sections of the skirt that are still present. Currently, the cream lining is showing through, making it rather obvious that something is missing. This dress is made of an elegant silk moire with a woven floral design. The bodice opens at the center in the front for an insert of beige lace and chiffon, which appears to be a favored style of the First Lady. The bodice is covered in French knots, tiny crystal beads, and sterling silver sequins which have tarnished to a black color over time. Several have come off the dress and are stored in a small glassine envelope in the box. It would have been even more exquisite when the sequins were new, shimmering silver in the light. The sequins are so tiny it is not possible to clean them without damaging the surrounding fabric. The ensemble features an overskirt which parts in the middle to reveal an elaborately designed underskirt in the same design as the bodice. A dressmaker's tape reads Rock and Torpy, New York. This gown is silk damask with a woven iris pattern and a pale aqua chiffon insert down the front of the bodice, at the cuffs, and on the front of the skirt, which flares into a slight train. A dressmaker's tape reads Rock and Torpy of New York. This particular shade of blue appears to have been Ida's favorite color. Sadly, the fabrics of both the lining and the shell of this gorgeous gown are splitting and badly disintegrating. The attention to detail is remarkable, making it a priority in our conservation project. This elegant two-piece beige silk taffeta bodice and skirt features a woven floral pattern and touches of applied black velvet circles and aqua embroidery. The costume is accented at the waist with a broad sash of aqua and beige silk with fringed ends. The maker's tape reads Madame George, Baltimore and Paris. This dress is quite lovely, but it is extremely fragile and cannot be removed from its box. After conservation treatment to stabilize the dress, we will be able to put it on a dress form without damaging it any further. This is one of the few gowns in our Ida McKinley collection that is stable enough to display. It was last on view in the Keller Gallery exhibition The Victorian Age in 2010. It is a lovely gray silk crepe costume, elaborately but subtly trimmed with combinations of pale rose and off-white cording, small pearls, and bands of narrow gray velvet. Marshall Field is embroidered on the waist tape. Mrs. McKinley had a nephew who worked for Marshall Field. She is believed to have traveled to Chicago by train, where Marshall Field representatives would bring clothes to her hotel for her to make choices. We have raised enough money through donations and a generous grant from the Bay and Paul Foundations in New York City to begin conservation treatment on 3 of the gowns. The first is this elaborate two-piece beige silk damask dress with a pattern of leaves and small flowers. The bodice is heavily ornamented with pearls, glass beads, and tiny square mirrors. The dressmaker's waist tape reads Mrs. Dunstan, East 30th Street, New York. This dress is absolutely lovely. The inside edge of the chiffon panel was torn away and a small section appeared to be lost, so what remained could not reach all the way to the seam line. Chandra Obi, our textile conservator, completed the lost part and supported the damaged weak edge by adhering it to a patch of silk crepeline impregnated with conservation adhesive. She tacked the edge back in place to match the tacks that remained. The treatment for the skirt hem is also adhesive patch support. This area is a case of 1 step back to make 2 steps forward. To get access to the reverse of the damaged fabric, Chandra had to take apart part of the hem where the restoration lining was sewn to the skirt. Luckily, those aren't original stitches anyway. With the restoration lining released, access in this area is very good, so she could use larger support patches that extend the area of support and move the edge of the patch, which can create an area of stress, well away from the weak areas. Those patches are also silk crepeline impregnated with adhesive. Chandra applied it to the reverse with just light tacks. The adhesive starts to stick with just the heat of your fingers. Next, she turned back to the face where she could align the loose threads and be sure the slits were closed, then activated the adhesive with a heated spatula. The finish is nearly invisible, with the slits and tears held in place from the reverse. Chandra also treated a small tear on the right shoulder just outside of the beading. A small adhesive patch was slipped through the tear, aligned with tweezers, and activated with the heated spatula. This area undergoes a lot of movement, so she also stitched the slit closed. The beaded section of this dress has a metal coil detail. It looks like a thin, flat ribbon of metal and has no core. It is probably brass. The copper has reacted with acid and produced salt byproducts, which appear as that green crusty stuff. The corrosion is quite extensive in some areas, and the metal coil is very thin, so the corroded areas can't be safely cleaned. Chandra used tweezers, a soft brush, and vacuum suction to reduce the thickest buildup and remove it before the salts could work their way deeper into the embellishment. The museum is currently seeking donations from individuals as well as grant opportunities to fund this important conservation project. If you would like to support the Ida McKinley Dress Project, please consider making a donation in the collection box on the right side of the McKinley Gallery. Every dollar donated will go directly to the conservation treatment of an Ida McKinley gown. You may also use a credit card or send a check to receive a receipt for your tax-deductible donation. With your help, we can share these exquisite gowns with museum visitors for generations to come.